Arthur, A-R-T-H-U-R, Silber, S-I-L-B-E-R, Arthur Silber Jr., right.
Right on.
Right in the middle. Matter of fact, before I finally got a hold of you, I'm in the middle of writing this. This second book is turning out to be worse than the first one, as far as completing is concerned. It's a major project. What it is the life story of Sammy told in photographs. And when I started this, I said, that'll be no snap. Sammy and I were both photographers, hobby-wise, and we never went any place without cameras. I'm sure I got a lot of pictures. I didn't know that I had over 1,800.
Wow.
And then after going back into the basement, in the plastic boxes, the shoe boxes, into Apple, you have no idea. This has taken almost a year just to get to this point. So I said, my God, I had no idea I had those many pictures. Now, after you get the pictures, all right, then you got to put them into some form. You got to get them into the computer and correct any bad photography as best you can, and so on and so forth. And then you've got to put them into categories.
Wow.
Like, Sammy playing the drums, or Sammy dancing, or Sammy, the Sammy in the movies, Sammy doing television. That is becoming a major problem. And right now I'm working in front of two 22-inch screens, and now I have to get a third one. There's just too many pictures because we're floating someplace between 1,600 and 1,800 pictures. Incredible
collection you have.
Yeah, well, it isn't, but naturally we probably won't use that many. I mean, that's too many, just too many. It's just. But I've got to cut it down into the best ones of the, in the categories that I can find. It's. I definitely, if a man ever needs a pictorial history of somebody else's life, I surely have it, all the way starting from 1933. That's the first picture I got, when he was just turning 4 years old, and then all the way up until the end.
So Arthur, this is going to be basically life in the pictures, and you can do basically another 100 books with all these pictures.
I don't mean to laugh at that. It's not a laughing matter, but it is the truth. I could do it, but it's killing me. My eyes are just going blank when you look at that many pictures in a computer screen, 22-inch screens, two of them in front of you, and you're only an arm length away. Back and forth, move this one here, move that one there. And then after you get the pictures, then you have to start constructing the book. And the book is a template, it's a format. And it took me almost 2 months to find, at least 2 months, to find the format that is out there for people to use to make books. I'm not talking about a textbook. That's easy. You can do that in Word. This is not that kind of a book. This is all pictures. Well, I finally got, I've finally got the right program, but it cost $1,700 to get it. But at least I got it. Adobe InDesign is the one that does it.
Right.
And now then, after I get the pictures, I have to write a certain amount of text to explain, other than a caption for the picture. This is Sammy doing this, or this is Sammy doing that, or this is Sammy and Errol Flynn talking, or something like that. There's a certain amount of these pictures that require an explanation. It's no use to have them without an explanation of what you're looking at.
Everybody in the pictures, everybody has a name.
Oh, absolutely. That's what I'm saying. That's the captions.
Okay.
The captions are easy. If for example, let me, if I can throw an example at you. In the original book, Sammy Davis, Me and My Shadow, and we talk about the accident where he lost his eye. Well, at that point in time, when I did that book, I had only one actual picture of the actual car that he had the accident in. Since that time, not only do I have a picture of the car, I have pictures of where the accident took place. I have pictures of the gas station across the street where the young man helped Sammy drag Charlie out of a car while his eye was hanging down his face. All of a sudden, from one picture, I've got 5. Now it requires some explanation about what you're looking at. I mean, the picture of a highway and a V in the highway doesn't tell you anything. It doesn't tell you anything like, say, it was Baseline Boulevard and the old Highway 66. That's not going to help people that have no idea what I'm talking about. I have to now tell you a little story.
Denise Ames says a big hi to you.
Denise Ames?
Yes, from California.
Denise Ames is probably one of my closest friends.
All right, well, she says hi.
Well, tell her, is she there?
No, she just messaged me probably 2 hours ago.
Oh, just messaged you, because I sent her an email 2 days ago, and I'm waiting for her to answer me. Yeah, we're very close friends.
Yeah, she said that you're a good person.
Very well, thank you. I appreciate that, and I think she's a very nice. She is really, sincerely one of my closest friends.
And I seen your interview with Denise Ames on the Rustin Report on your website.
And the rest, yeah, that stuff was just put out there. That stuff's only been out there about a month, if that. All of that, all of my radio and television interviews that are either on tape or on, some are photos. I mean, some are like interviews like hers.
Right.
And then some are radio interviews that are going out because I am doing as much as I can with my publicist to get this story out about Sammy, because I'm the last living authority on Sammy. That's a truth. That's a fact. I don't mean it to sound like I'm blowing my horn. It just happens to be the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm getting over every day. But it's just that I'm trying to get the story out there as to which people who are over 45 years old who know exactly who he is are not the people that seem to be in control of the industries nowadays, television and all of this. The young men young folks that are, I call them young because I'll be 79 next month. And, young folks, they have no idea who this man is, what he did, and how much he did, and what kind of an entertainer he was. I'm trying to get a movie or a miniseries done, and I've already got the script's already been done.
Mm-hmm.
Just try to convince somebody, well, we don't know who he is, or nobody knows who he is. Well, maybe it's time they should, because I know they're doing the autobiography on Vanity Fair is doing it on. Here's what happens when you get old: names go out of your head. Harry Belafonte, who was a good friend of Sammy's, and they have the writing or the book publishing wing of Vanity Fair is the one that's doing it, and his writer is contacting me for information that I have about Harry and Sammy and Belafonte. They're all back in the day, as they say, we were all very close friends, and I had some pictures that are in my book that I sent to her to use in their book.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an ongoing thing, you know. But I'm trying. I'm doing the best I can.
You've lived an excellent life, how was the backstage scene, let's say, back then, mid-50s, if there was a backstage?
Well, there's always a backstage. I don't exactly know how to word exactly what you need to know. I don't know what you're...
Like the lifestyle, was it glamorous as, today, how the Rolling Stones would be treated backstage?
Well, yes, I'm going to answer this question that way. Yes and no. Back in the days... back in the days of the Rat Pack and Sammy and all of those people, the backstage and the Jerry Lewises and the Dean and Martin and all of those people, backstage was a lot different than it is today. Because when you take the Rolling Stones or anything of that genre and mix it with the other, they don't mix. It's not the same at all. Because the back in the days, my days, our days, it was different. Sure, there's backstage, a whole lot of glamour, but it wasn't the almost uncontrolled atmosphere that the rock groups and all these people have today with 1 billion people around them all the time. No, it was not that at all. It was friends going out after a show. If you're in Vegas, going to one of the later shows at a restaurant or down the block to see Keely Smith and those people in their show people are doing late shows and all of this, and they were of course all friends, and they had fun and everything, but the drugs did not flow at all like they do today. I mean, it was not a drug saturated atmosphere. Sure, people smoked pot back in those days, not I, but they do, and some people took heavier drugs. But it wasn't anywhere near blatantly as it was when the era changed and to what it is today. Unfortunately, I have to say that, but it's the truth. And it's sad, to be honest with you, when, friendships were friendships, and people were people, and it was not as hectic. There wasn't as many managers and road managers and hanger-oners and groups like there is today. Trust me, there was. Oh, there were plenty of people backstage, and plenty of friends, plenty of girls, plenty of guys, yes, but not like it is today. Nowhere near it. Not even close. A whole different thing.
When did you start, thinking that you have to do this about Sammy Davis Jr., start writing the first one? When did you, decide to do it?
I'll tell you, it's kind of a funny story behind that, because my life, when I left Sammy, purposely I quit. We're still the dearest of friends until he died. I quit because some people were putting him down the wrong path. I pulled myself away from Sammy for about a year and a half, and I actually quit. The story about how that happened is in my book. I won't get into all that. But everybody, including my wife and her brother, by the way, used to be one of Sammy's opening acts, used to say, well, why don't you do a story? Why don't you do a story? Well, I'm busy. I was working, for some pretty big names of my own. I was on the road, and who has the time to sit down and write a book? That wasn't my frame of mind at that point in time. But later on, I had so many people beating me over the head. Why don't you write? I says, okay, one day, all right, I'll write the book. It all started from when I was away for a year and a half, and I came back. I was sitting with Sammy. Sammy and I used to sit up and talk late at night, just the two of us, all the time. We said something came up, and I said, Sam, I said, one day I'm going to write a story about all this. And he said, and he got very serious. Now, he had two names for me. One was Arthur, never Art, and the other one was Silber. When he wanted to get serious, he would call me Silber. And he'd say, Silber, if you do, then tell it the way it was. Tell the truth. And that's exactly what I did when I wrote that book. Every damn word in my book is the exact truth, exactly how it happened. And I'll challenge anybody who dares to try to challenge me. Because, you see, the difference is, in my book, I was there 24/7. And all the innuendo and all the other biographies were written about Sammy, partially true, partially not, and most of them are from innuendo or stories they gathered from other people. But my book is the only book that was ever endorsed by my Brett. The only one out of 5 that were ever written. So much for that. At any rate, I decided to write a book. I was in Aruba vacationing, and I said, well, I think I'm going to start. So I took a tape recorder, I set it on my chest, and I started to talk, and I got into about what would be the second or third chapter. I said, no, wait a minute, I can't do this, because I was talking ahead of myself, and I said, no, way back in the beginning this happened. That didn't work at all. So the next thing I did, when I got home, I tried to do it in the computer. Same problem. It doesn't work, because you start writing, and then you forget about 7 things that happened before where you were at. So simply paper and pencil and legal pad. That's what took to write this book. And I wrote it just as it happened. I started from the beginning and took it day by day. And then I wrote the book. It's as simple as that. Well, it wasn't simple. It took 7 years to do it. But then, after writing the book, then we had to pick out some pictures, because I wanted to do the book. And most books have picture segments in them. 1 here, 2 there, 3 there, with a number of pictures in them. Well, my book, the book is 325 pages, 352 pages long. And in that book, there are 325 photographs. That's the first book. Because as we went from story to story, chapter to chapter, if I had any pictures that dealt with any of the people that were in that chapter, they are in that chapter. So you know who you're talking about. You read a chapter about so-and-so, or this guy, that guy, or this happening or that happening. Whatever pictures I found are in that chapter, and that's the way the book came out. It's with the chapter. So now, from that stems what I'm doing now. I finished that book, 3 years ago, whatever, 3.5 years ago. Now, and it won an award, the best Hollywood book of the year, which I'm rather proud of.
Mm-hmm.
And then people that go through it who don't exactly remember who Sammy is, they look through the book, and the first thing that catches your eye are pictures. Pictures always catch people's eyes before the text, before anything. And they catch their eye, younger folks who are not quite sure who he is or who even Frank is, let alone the other two guys. People always think that the Rat Pack is Frank, Dean, and Sammy. Well, they're short two people. It's Frank, Dean, Sammy, Peter Lawford, and Joey Bishop. That's the Rat Pack. That's it. All of those people are the Rat Pack. At any rate, they look at the picture, and your eye naturally, normally, moves from the Rat Pack to the text. I mean, from the pictures to the text. If you start reading the text, and the pictures there, it starts you reading. You have no idea how many young folks have bought my book, and they didn't have an idea who in the world who they were reading about until they got further into the book, of course. And so people again say, "Jesus, Art, you got to do a coffee table book." I said, "No, man, I took too long and too much money and too much time to write the first book. I won't attempt that." Well, I've had so many requests. I mean, you have no idea. So I said, "Well, okay, I'll try it." Sorry, I decided to try it because the task is truly monumental, sir. It really is a monumental task. I'm halfway there now, but it's still a monumental task. I'm in the portion now where I have to add a third screen to separate the pictures now into sections. You know, I have to take sections of one, because the book is titled Sammy from Vaudeville to the Rat Pack and Beyond. Well, if I got a picture of Sammy when he was 4 years old, I start with that. I certainly can't throw in a picture that is not a vaudeville type picture. I can't throw in a picture of the Rat Pack there. It doesn't come yet, you know. And the pictures of all the movies he did and the TV shows that he did, that's too early for that. That comes next. And that's what I'm now separating into categories. It's very, very difficult. I have these pages up. Right now I'm on page 18. And on each page, printed in a little larger than the postage stamp, I would say maybe 1 inch by 1.5 inches size pictures, the majority of them. There are 70 pictures per page, from 50 to 70 pictures per page, and I'm just on page 18. And those pictures are those pictures are the size paper I'm working with is 3 feet by 2 feet. There's a lot of pictures, mister. A lot of pictures. And I still have at least 200 more to go. And then from there is where I draw the pictures. I take a pencil and cross out, no, we're not going to use this, now we're going to use that, now we're going to use this, you know. And then I draw from there. It's really, and I'm the only guy doing this. I'm doing it by myself. And with a little help from a young man from Alabama who's helping me as best he can, but he doesn't know. He wasn't even born when Sammy was, you know.
Let's say, you know, the Rat Pack, you know, the famous three that people mostly remember, Dean Martin, Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis Jr. Why is it the media never, you know, focused on those two others that you just mentioned?
That's good. You know, it's the first time I've ever been asked that question. I can answer part of it this way. It is a kind of a mystery. Joey Bishop, who was the biggest star in his own right, has his own TV shows and everything, you know, Joey Bishop hated the concept and the expression Rat Pack. And if you were a news person, you were to go to Joey Bishop and say, "Tell us about the Rat Pack," he would turn around and walk away from you. He wanted no part of that, what's the word? He wanted no part of that Rat Pack thing, whatever it is. And then Peter Lawford, being an actor, you know, a good English actor, and the nicest man in the world, you know, they never went after. He was always in the movies. They never after him. But it's Sammy and Dean and Frank that always were. Frank was always getting in trouble with somebody, and they were always making fun of Sammy. and Dean was always playing golf, and it just stuck. And there's a chapter in the original book that says Rat Pack, magic or myth, and there was a lot of myth, a lot of out there right now today. There's a lot of myth about them. It stands to reason that if you take three people as big as they were, star-wise, performer-wise, that they had nothing else to do but to hang out together all the time? No, they were all out working every day, doing their thing. When they got together for a movie, when they got together at a Hollywood function or some big function for something, it was fun and a lot of fun and this and that and so on and so forth. But they didn't do that all the time, and that's the myth that stuck. And you'd be surprised how they got the name Rat Pack. Rat Pack did not come from any of them. It came from Lauren Bacall. And it had nothing to do with Sammy or Dean. It had to do with her husband and Errol Flynn and a couple of their friends. They were in Bogart's house one day, and they were all, because they're all pretty heavy drinkers, those guys. And they were watching a ball game or something, and she was walking through the hall past them, and she says, "There they are, the Rat Pack." She's the one that coined the phrase. Because originally the phrase was, when they did the original Ocean's 11, it was called the Summit at the Sands. And how it got around, and the girls that were close, the women that were close to those guys, became the Rat Pack girls. And Lauren Bacall happened to be one of them. And it just stuck. And you throw a bunch of stuff on the wall, and some of it sticks. And that's exactly what happened. Why, I don't know. I have no idea. They just they created this illusion, and this illusion just followed them around like a halo on the heads of these three guys. Not the other two. Not the other two, just those three guys. And I could not answer your question any better than that, because I don't know the answer myself.
Let's go back, back in the 50s, PA systems. How did the shows go and the people in the crowd hear them so well?
Back in the 50s, I assure you, the PA. Now you're getting into my into the business. The PA systems were very good. Not what they are today, but they were certainly big enough. They have the speakers, and in the rooms, and all the audio file stuff was pretty good equipment. Because when I quit Sammy, and I jumped directly from Sammy to the Letterman in their prime, you're talking about, the Beach Boys, Letterman, and all these people, because they were as big as anybody in the world. But they created, actually, one of the Lettermen had an idea. He had these big speakers made, and they carried with him. We carried it with us, and I was with them for 11 years. He created, by taking two microphones together and taped them together. So each one of the three guys had two microphones taped together. Here was the beginning of stereo sound. Now I'm giving you a little bit of show business history. Before it became so technically advanced to what it is now. They started this. They had a board built, cost them $50,000, a soundboard built, so it would handle the two different microphones and give you bass and treble and whatever. That's how this all. I'm giving a lot of show business history right now. An interesting question you asked. But the sound is whatever they had in the theaters. They had the best that the money could buy at the time. I do tell you one thing, that Sammy had a lifetime contract with Bill Harrah at Harrah's at Lake Tahoe and Lake Tahoe. Reno and Lake Tahoe. Sammy built the sound system in Harrah's at Lake Tahoe, which is there to this day. So he had his engineers come in and he worked with them, and that's how one sound system worked, because I was there when he did it. So, but, I hope I answered your question as best I could.
I think you surely did. The stereo system, with two microphones taped together, there's people in the late 60s still using that technique, and you well explained it.
Well, yeah, but now you have stereo microphones and all of the rest of it. We're way beyond that now. They got the instead of using the playback speakers on the floor so they could hear themselves sing and play. They now plug it into their ear and wear a pack on their back. You know, things have come a long, long, a long way from there. The idea is to get rid of all of those monitor speakers that are laid all over the stage in front of everybody. So the guitar player, the bass player, the piano player, whoever was there playing could hear themselves alone and hear the artist at their level that they wanted to hear it. That's individual people. So then of course we came further, and now each guy wears a headset, and in his headset he hears what he wants to hear. He tells the sound man, I want to hear a little bit of the trumpet, a little bit of the drums, I want to hear the bass, I want to hear the guitar, but I want to hear myself too. Mm-hmm. And that's what's being fed into their ears when you see them all with the wire hanging in their ears, and then the backpack on their backs. So we're way a long way from two microphones. Held together with duct tape.
Let's say the first show that
when Sammy and I were 4.5 years. He was 4.5 years older than I was. Sammy was born in 1925.
Okay.
I was born in 1931. But they had this thing where Sammy went on the stage at 2 years old. Well, if he did, he walked on and walked off in diapers. The actual time that I have been able to dig up and try to find was the first appearance where he started to come together. He was in a movie called Rufus Jones for President, and it was he and Ethel Waters did that movie, and Sammy was 7 years old. And before that, I have the pictures of him doing something when he was dancing with Bill Robinson, who taught him, who was the original Bojangles, who taught Sammy how to dance. And Sammy was at that point 3.5 years old.
Wow, incredible!
I got a lot of history. Behind me. I mean, I can tell you a lot. You know what I mean? We could carry this conversation on for days because that's what I do. People call me and we're going to do 20 minutes with you, 15, and they end up doing an hour and a half.
Wow.
Only because what you just asked me. You asked me some very interesting questions. They always ask me, how did you meet Sammy? Which is an obvious question. Tell me about the Rat Pack and tell me about Kim Novak. Those are the three questions I get all the time. And I stopped answering one of them. I'm just tired of going through the Kim Novak situation. It's ridiculous. But, I mean, I got a lot of history to tell people. If you want to know, you had some very interesting questions, man. That thing about the microphones was a very interesting question.
Well, you have to sometimes open up and say, let's ask a question that you don't get asked often, and let's dig up.
I have a sheet. I don't know whether you got it or not. I have a sheet, a full sheet of 8 by 10. It says questions to ask during interviews. I got so tired of the obvious questions, the same questions over and over and over again, that I typed up a sheet and I gave it to my public relations people, and I say, look, if I'm going to do a radio show, please send these people a book and send them the sheet so they can deviate. And then there are times when I have to deviate you, and saying, okay, and I will take you down. I'm very good at taking you down a different path if I have to. So to get out some interesting stories for the people that are listening to us, So if you got any more, lay them on me. I'll do the best I can. Yeah. You asked me some different questions. Yeah, you did. I think it's good for you. You got a listening audience, and they're going to hear a little bit of different things. I mean, if you wanted to, like what happens for example, what happens backstage? That's a very interesting question. I've never had that question asked me before, ever. And believe me, I've done hundreds of these things. And what was the atmosphere backstage? Those are interesting questions. Those really are interesting questions. And I think people, when they hear the answers, they may be surprised. They're different questions, and especially the thing about the sound. That's a very interesting question.
Marilyn Monroe, do you remember meeting her?
Oh, do I ever? I have a picture hanging in my wall, not more than 8 feet away from me right now, with Marilyn says, "To Arthur with love and kisses, Marilyn." Yes, I do know Marilyn. I did know her. if you want to know a little bit of what I know about Marilyn, she was very quiet. She was how shall I say it? She was quiet. She was very timid. Would be a word that I would use.
Okay.
She was not what everybody tried to make her be. She was not that. Trust me, she was not. And she was always under the control of whomsoever had her working for them at the time, or this or that. She has talent, and her beauty speaks for itself. But she's just let too many people control her, all the way down from President Kennedy and his brother and the rest of the people. And I'm not going to get into that story because I think everybody thinks they know the whole story there, and they really don't. One thing about being in show business when you're really in it, you know a lot more than the press knows, but you keep your mouth shut. And why do you want to spoil somebody's reputation? You know, they've been all over her from everything from God knows what to God knows what. You know, all she wanted to do was to be happy. She really wanted to be married and have a baby. I can tell you that. And just from she and I talking together at a party once, as a matter of fact. And she was very nice to me. I have a picture of that, of her talking to me. Matter of fact, that picture of her talking to me is in my book. It was at a party with it was a party of Just Rand, who was Sammy's publicist. It was Sammy just after he didn't have his new eye at that time. He had a patch on his eye, and Jeff Chandler and myself and Marilyn Monroe. That's who's in the picture. You know, it was a quiet party. It was an engagement party for his publicist. That's what it was. It was just a very simple little party. No, not one of those big things where you know, happy birthday, Mr. President, and all of that other stuff they put that poor woman through. They really put it through her a lot, and ended up killing her. So, enough of that. Ask me another question. That's a touchy.
Okay, well, I appreciate
area.
you going on that. Presidents of the United States of America. You get to meet these guys?
Oh, yeah. Here's the way that happens. I have worked for 4 of them, and I have done shows for Grace Kelly, Queen of England, and the Queen Mother. That's when you get into that realm of people. Whenever you do a show for a president, if in my position as the production manager, lighting director, and company manager, that's a lot of hats, I know.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the hats that I wear. And in Sammy's case, wherever Sammy was, Arthur was, 24/7. So whenever you speak to me, you're speaking to Sammy, or vice versa. We had a very special relationship. And whenever you work for a president or somebody of that nature, I assure you, I'll guarantee you this, that before you see or are around or near a president-elect or one that's running for an office, the FBI and the Secret Service know everything about you that you ever didn't even know anybody knew. Trust me, they do. Mm-hmm. Before they even meet you, they know all about you for obvious reasons. And so I have made a lot of good friends in the FBI and the Secret Service and a lot of police departments in doing. I was at the last big show before Kennedy did before the election. Mm-hmm. You know, the last big hurrah with all the people there and so on and so forth. I was there, and I've told you, I knew the FBI. That what they do is the same thing happened when I was there when Carter was doing a show. They I'm in fixing up the stage, fixing the lights. That's my job. That's what I do. And they come around and say, okay, you all finished? Yeah, we're just about finished here because we're going to have to ask you to leave the building now because we're going to let the dogs in. That's the truth. The dogs come in. And you better not be around when the dogs come in because they will attack you. And or they will snoot you out and somebody will shoot you or find out what you're doing there. So it's kind of it's really is interesting, but it's kind of scary. But it's interesting to see how the behind the scenes works with all the people that go on behind these type of people, you know.
Right.
And they don't want anybody around that doesn't want to be around. And I assure you, when you're working for the Queen of England or the Queen Mother and Grace Kelly, I can guarantee you it happens. Believe me, interesting, but happens. And these are nice people, by the way. The Queen of England is the nicest person I've ever met. She's one of that's overqualified. She's one of the nicest people I've ever met personally. It just so happens that she came. I'll make the story short. The story's in my book, but she came down after a command performance, and she comes first before anybody else, carrying the flowers and all of that howzah. And when she finished, she's the last one, and she turns and she was going back out to her car with the red carpet and the rosebuds on the floor. That's exactly how it is. And I was taking pictures, which I shouldn't have been, because I wasn't even supposed to have a camera backstage. But being that I was on the stage all day long with my camera, you know me, I told you we went every place with cameras. I had a camera, and I took pictures of her coming down the aisle, and I took 2 pictures of her talking to Sammy. And I'm the only one. The pool photographer never got it. I got it. So all the newspapers came after me to get my picture when they found out that I had a picture of Sammy talking to the Queen. And I got it. They asked could they borrow it. I said, absolutely. I have no qualms about that. Go on here. You just give me back my negatives. You know, develop the picture. Anyway, I took my last picture. And then I went over and stood by the doorway all by myself where she was going to go out, the stage door. She was going to go back to her car. And I was standing there alone with my camera in my hand, and she walked up. She was about 6-8 feet from me. And she stopped to say good evening to me. I had to pick up my camera and take a picture, but I had no film in the camera. I'd used it all up. Greatest picture of my life. I blew it because I didn't have any film in the camera. Anyway, but she was nice and very pleasant. Nice. She didn't just walk by like the Queen of England. She stopped and said good evening and how are you and so on. You know what I mean? I'm standing there, me and the Queen are standing there alone. You know, you get a moment like that maybe once in your life. I've led a very, very, very interesting life. I really have, because I have been just about there every place there is to go, and with the people that are worthwhile going with. You know, I am not a rock person. I am not a rock fan. I am not part of that culture at all. No, we're not even close.
How you're living these days? You living comfortably, really happy? You know, everything's going good? Well,
I have a. That's a tough question for me to answer today of all days. I live a normal life. I'm not wealthy. Me and my wife, we live comfortably. We have a family. But right this moment, as we speak, and my son, as a matter of fact, 5 minutes before I got a hold of you, I was talking to my wife because my youngest son is waiting for a liver transplant. And he took a left, and he's been fine for the last couple of years while waiting, but he took a left-hand turn last week, and right now, as I speak to you, he is being incubated in a hospital 100 miles away from where I am right now at this moment. And my wife had just called me to tell me what's going on. He's in a semi-coma, and it is not pleasant.
No.
It's never pleasant when your kids may die before you do. You know, it's just not made to me, and it's this week has been a very tough week for me, and for the whole family, not just me. For my home, my wife is still there, and she's 100. She's 70. She's 97 miles away from me. So is he. He's in the hospital, and that's where she stays. You know, that's what mothers do. Well, that's what mothers like my wife do, at any rate, because we've been married 51 years. So, but and she's a show business family. She's a 5th generation circus family, and performer. Her and her brother were the biggest acrobatic act in the world. They used to open for Sammy, and at one time they were headlining at the Dunes in Las Vegas. As a matter of fact, I met her during that period of time. We're kind of show business oriented around here. But that's how I feel now. You know, naturally I'm upset. I'm very upset. You know, I'm try to keep it as light as I can, and it's not nice for me to dump all my stuff on your people. It's just, but you asked the question, so I answered it.
Truly sorry to have asked that question.
But please, don't apologize. It's a legitimate question. I have nothing. I'm a realist. I have no question about people asking questions like that. I mean, that's a natural question. How you doing now, Mr. Silber? You living a comfortable life, And just so happens that a week ago everything went the wrong direction, but that happens in life too,
Okay. Well, we'll be praying for your son.
And, thank you, sir. That's a very kind thing for you to say. Well, again, that's life, and you have to face life. When you live it like I have and been around what I have, you live it as it comes at you. You can't. And you must. You must. You can't let it throw you too bad. Naturally, it'll throw you, but you can't let it knock you off your feet. If you do, you got no business being in the business I've been in. Because that old expression, the show must go on. Well, life goes on. Regardless, life goes on. Sure, it may be sad and it may be tough, but it goes on. I mean, the sun will come up tomorrow, whether I'm dead or alive, the sun comes up tomorrow. So that's unless you got that big black cloud coming from Iceland over your head someplace. I appreciate your time and your questions. You're a good interview. I can tell the good ones from the bad ones. You're a good interview. You ask some interesting questions. I hope some of the people will listen to the answers and get an idea about what kind of a man Sammy was. Because Sammy, you see, there's one question I do get asked that a lot of people ask and they don't know. The difference between Sammy, Dean, and Frank. There is a big difference between those people personally. Big one. But anyway, that's for another time, okay? Actually, what happens is the pictures will bring to your mind, well, what happened there, or what's going on here? You know what I mean? That I always call that the story behind the story thing. Well, all right, you've seen these pictures, but ask me what really happened, or what happened later. That's a whole nother ballgame. Thanks again. Appreciate it.
You're welcome, and you have a great day.
Thank you. You too, sir. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.